Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. My name is Suleiman. The Federal High Court in Abuja has ordered the governor, the governor of Ebonyi State, Dave Umahi, and his deputy, Eric Igwe, to vacate their seats as the sitting governors and deputy, respectively. The judge made this on grounds that the election was won by the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in March 2019, and not the candidates themselves. The Ebonyi State governor and his deputy defected to the opposition from the opposition PDP to the ruling APC in November 2020. Of course, they both were elected into office on the platform of the PDP in 2015 and 2019, respectively. The court on Tuesday held that having defected to the APC, Governor Umahi and his deputy cannot transfer the mandate of the PDP to the APC. Presiding Judge Justice Ian Eko ordered the governor and his deputy to vacate office, saying that their defection was illegal, null, and unconstitutional. He said that the PDP should immediately send names of replacements to INEC so that fresh elections be conducted. Governor Umahi, in turn, has dismissed the judgment, saying that Justice Eko lacks the power to remove him from office. Umahi and his deputy remain in office up to this moment so far. Meanwhile, the PDP in the state has welcomed the judgment, and they have said that they are looking for names that they will be soon forwarding to whoever we don't know yet. So tonight we ask, who between the candidate and their political party owns the votes cast for them? When you cast a vote, are you casting that vote to a candidate or to a political party or to both? How will this case transform the debate around carpet crossing and the campaign which our politicians favor all the time? Should Dave Umahi and his deputy leave office? And if they don't, will it become the contempt of court? And what is the way forward for the people of Ebonyi State, and more importantly, for Nigerian democracy? With me to discuss these issues are Barrister Aliyu Abdullahi, who is a lawyer and a special assistant to the President on Media and Publicity. Barrister Aliyu Abdullahi works in the office of the First Lady. Also with me is Barrister Nkem Okoro, who is a constitutional lawyer and human rights activist. Welcome to Daily Politics, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Barrister Aliyu will be joining us in a moment, so stay tuned for him. But before we go proper into the program, we'll take a brief moment, a brief break. When we return, we'll jump right into it. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. We're discussing issues around the recent court judgment that the governor of Ebonyi State should vacate his office because the votes belong not to him, but to his party. I have with me two lawyers, Barrister Nkem Okoro and, of course, Barrister Abdullahi as well. So we're going to be dealing with this issue. Usually I start from my right, and then I end with my left. So, Barrister Nkem, I'm starting with you. You have gone through issues like this before, defended some of them in court, or been on one side or the other of such issues in court. What's really going on? Why do we keep having, these issues recurring? A governor gets into a seat and then a court sacks them. A governor, why is it that courts are deciding more of our elections than voters?
Thank you for these questions. I think the starting point is from the Constitution.
Okay.
The Constitution is the central law that governs or dictates the activities of the three arms of government. We have several lacuna in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And most times, the factors that engender constitutional amendments are judicial decisions, just as has been given in the case of Dave Umahi and his deputy. Yes, the issue of cross-carpeting is a nagging issue in our nascent democracy. And except there is a constitutional amendment to put a stop to it, it is likely going to continue. But I know that with this...
If a constitutional amendment will help, we just had a series of bills being considered for constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
Why was it not there, for example, recommended by the NBA or other parties within the system?
I wouldn't speak for NBA.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't speak for NBA. But I know currently, I am aware that there is a bill to that effect, currently pending before the House of National Assembly. I wouldn't know who is sponsoring the bill. I wouldn't know whether it's NBA, and I cannot speak for NBA at this very moment.
That's all right. Barrister, in your case, you are both in politics and in the legal profession, so you're an insider at the same time. The votes that the 393,000 votes that were cast on behalf of Governor Dev Umahi as a PDP candidate at that time in both 2015 and 2019. Those 393,000 votes, do they belong to the governor as a candidate, or they belong to the party, as political party, the vehicle with which one is which?
Well, good evening. This is my first time on being here.
Yes.
To be honest, I don't believe like this constitution or the law has come out to clearly spelled out who actually on the votes. But this is what the law says.
Okay.
After, if you recall, during the Right Honorable Mechi and Celeste Omeya's case, when the court has to decide who was actually the rightful flag bearer of their party, then the PDP. And when Celeste Omeya actually stood for the election, but the court found out that Amechi was the right candidate to actually stand for the election. So the Supreme Court made a landmark decision and then upheld that since the votes were actually cast for the party, then it means even though Rotimi Amechi, who didn't contest in the general election, is the rightful winner of the election because the votes is for the party, the PDP. So now the candidate that is recognized by law in that case was Amechi. So Celeste Omeya, it doesn't matter, you were the one that actually stood for the election in the general election. That was the law. It was a Supreme Court decision. That was the law then.
Okay. Has it changed between then and now?
Of course. Okay. There was a constitutional amendment after that because even you, I mean, a lot of people will find something a little bit concerned with that decision of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, let me say, they are not infallible.
Okay.
You know, they are infallible because they are final, not because they cannot make mistake. They are humans. Every human make mistakes.
Yeah.
Now, the new law, the Constitution, is the amendment that came because of that decision was every candidate will only emerge as a winner, even if you go to court, only if you have gone through the processes, including the general election.
Okay.
Now, I will come to other areas. I believe through during dependency of the program. Now,
okay.
If now someone, say, Governor Dev Umahi, is disqualified for defection, which there is a whole law on that. I will come to that later. Let Mr. ABC, who is from the second
PDP
party,
to be specific,
you know,
yes,
which is even more different than the Amechi's case. Let the person come and take it. Where is the justice in that?
Let me bring him into the discussion, because what he is saying now is that the implication of this law, if we were to follow it, what the judge is suggesting, is we're going to have a governor and a deputy governor from the PDP who did not go through a nomination process, who did not have primaries, and who did not participate in any general elections. And they're just going to become governors and deputy governors. Do the Constitution envisage that somebody will have governorship of a state handed out to them in their bed?
Okay, that specific provisions of the Constitution, I am thinking that my learned friend is not having the full, putting it in the concept it was used in that regard. And I am also thinking that it is not applicable with respect to the facts and circumstances of the case of Governor Dave Umahi and his deputy, in the sense that it was a matter, it borders on pre-election and election petitions. That, and I think it was section 285 of the Constitution. It borders on election matters, pre-election matters, and election petition matters. And it was on the basis of that, and on the basis of certain judicial decisions in respect of candidates who did not contest fully, participate fully in the elections, that the National Assembly decided to make the consequential amendment to the Constitution.
So what does that amendment say clearly? What does it say clearly?
That amendment was to the effect that in an election petition or pre-election matter or post-pre-election matter, now in an election petition or post-election matter, it is only candidates who participated fully. Now, the case
fully
of
in what?
who participated in the processes of the primary election and the election itself and all the rest of it.
Okay.
Now, it is a different thing in the case of Dave Umahi.
Okay.
And his defecting deputy. It is a different ballgame in the sense that and that is where I'm also trying to say that the Constitution, there are lacunas. You know, we say we have a nascent democracy. And most times it is in the course of issues when they arise that the need to further go back to the drawing board and amend the Constitution to accommodate situations that were not factored in the making of the Constitution originally. So what the issue of defections of governors and the case of Dave Umahi has brought to the fore in Nigeria is the need for the legislators to go back to the drawing board to ensure a consequential amendment in the provisions of the Constitution so that, one, to either stop permanently the issue of defection, either of the president or the governor.
Thank you, Barrister Abdullahi. That raises a fundamental issue, defection. You know, is a person, is a political party membership a kind of marriage in which you have till death do us part?
For better or for worse?
For better, for worse, till death do us part? Or is it a political association that somebody can change at any time? Because we have other democracies to learn from, you know, around the world in which people move. It's not common, certainly not at the rate in which, because our own rate here is more or less like an epidemic of defections, you know. But people do move from one party to another without necessarily losing their case. So is defection fundamentally allowed in Nigerian constitution?
Thank you, Doctor. It's a very broad question, a little bit. I hope you will give me that time to actually do justice to it. First, before I answer your question, let me address my learned friend.
Okay.
You see, you asked him a question and he did not answer. In PDP, in Ebonyi State, in the last election, the only two people who completed the process as enshrined in the laws, the ground norm, the constitution, was Deb Umahi and his deputy. Nobody else completed that process. It is as simple as A, B, C, D. Everybody that must have contested with Deb Umahi,
another party,
or will have come short after the primary election.
Okay.
Because after the primaries, the party has one candidate, and that was Deb Umahi. He completed the process. So he said, the reason why I want to call his attention to that, he said, what I said has no relevance. How can this not have relevance? The Constitution says only someone who passed through the complete process will actually be winner. It doesn't matter whether it's pre-election or election, but the Constitution is clear. And it doesn't matter the motives or the intention of the draftsman of that Constitution when they actually put it together. The law is the law as long as it is there written as the law. He knows it. Now, that is one area I wanted to actually correct my learned friend. Back to the issue of defection.
Yes.
Now, whether it should be something that should be made as a law, that if you are in a political party, you don't defect, especially if you win election on that platform. And he's right, actually. I think there is a consideration in the ongoing constitutional amendment to that effect. I think it's a fantastic idea. One reason for that is because our politics in this climate, it's more and more, we are turning the political parties as vehicles and platforms for just grabbing or winning elections. If you compare it to other countries, especially the country we borrowed this system of government, the United States of America, for example, political party is an ideology based on a lot of things. There are things that a party A, for example, we have the Republican, GOP, and the Democrats. They all each have a stand on national and issues that concern their culture, their way of life, and even their morality. Abortion, for example, it's a big issue when it comes to Republican Party. They don't believe that a woman should have the right to actually abort a baby. But the Democrats, who are liberal, they believe that a woman should have ownership of her body and can do what she wants to do with it. I'm just giving you as an instance and an example. So just because of this simple one example, you can find a group of people in the United States who belong to a Republican Party for just that, or the other for just that. But in Nigeria, I am yet to see a political party that has a clear and defined ideology that will make Mr.
Including
A.
your party, the ruling party?
Here today, I'm here purely as a lawyer and an analyst.
Go ahead.
So objective. So I'm here to see that clear party in Nigeria that is so defined that one will say, I'm standing in this party, I'm with this platform just because of this ideology that I share with it. This is the absence of this is why you see defections wherever the pendulum of power swings into. This is where you see the preponderance of defections moving, either at the state level, the party that is governing, or at the center. This is what is defining the movements that you are seeing, the zigzag movement that you are seeing within the polity. Now, again, although I'm an advocate for a principled and an ideological politics, so a law that will guide us on this way and stop this cross-carpeting, but there is one thing we also must be that must be considered. And now I take us to chapter 4 of the Constitution, the fundamental human rights that are enshrined in the Constitution.
The right to free association.
Freedom of association. And you see, they say all men are equal, but some are more, but all provisions of the constitutions are ground norm, are products of, are supposed to be product of the same law. But you see, chapter 4, the fundamental human right, is jealously and religiously guarded part of our laws.
So, Barrister, let me bring Barrister Inkem to the discussion.
Yes.
Essentially, Barrister Abdullahi is saying that even though he would like to see that we have ideological divisions across parties, and he welcomes the law that will guide public or behavior of politicians in this area, still, that fundamental right that citizens have to belong to party A or party B and to freely associate with whomever they want. Does that mean that in that case, Dave Umahi has done nothing wrong from moving from one party to another? For example, as it relates to the case in Zamfara State in June last year, where you have a governor, in this case without the deputy governor, moving from the same PDP back to APC. Does that explain? Is it the same?
Yes, the point here is the provisions of the chapter 4 of the Constitution that deals with the fundamental human rights of citizens of Nigeria. Majority of the provisions are not absolute.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to freedom of association, there has been a plethora of authorities of the Supreme Court that when you belong to an association which you freely join, you are bound by the dictates and laws of that association. I have personally advocated that the political parties in Nigeria should include as part of their constitution, and which every candidate vying for a position under that political party must sign before he is given a ticket.
If they do that, will it be justice? How do you people lawyers call it? Justiciable in the court of law? Say, for example, I sign that if I win governorship in PDP, I will remain a PDP governor, and then after I win in governorship, political environment changes, and then I move to APC.
That is where
you go to court as PDP, would the court consider your constitution or the Nigerian constitution?
Now let me tell you something. Now there has been several decisions where people who belong to an association will come to court to question certain provisions of the constitution of that association. And the court had persistently held that insofar as you freely belong to that association, you are bound by the dictates of the constitution of that association. You understand? So yes, you have a right to freedom of association, but when you have freely chosen an association and you belong to that association, you are bound by the laws and rules of that association. Hence, political parties can include it as part of their constitution that as we are issuing forms to would-be candidates, or as we are nominating candidates who will vie for various political positions under our party, there has to be an undertaking that if you are given this form, or if you are given this opportunity to vie for this position under the party, that for any reason, should you defect or should you decide to leave the party, that you leave your mandate.
Live with the votes.
Yes, you can't live with the vote. Hold on, let me come. Now, this is in tandem with the provisions of the Constitution. You remember, Section 221 of the Constitution provides that no other association can contest for election except it is a registered political party. You understand? Now, various provisions of the Constitution as it relates to the members of House of Assembly, the governor, the president, and the vice president, for them to be one of the criteria for them to qualify to vie for office in office in such capacities that they too must be members of political parties. So
I think we will come particularly to the members, House of Reps, senators, and state houses of assembly later on the show, because it appears like, at least within our political culture, if not within our legal system, they may be different. I don't know. You people are the lawyers. And but it's like you wanted to react to some of the things. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes. You're becoming, you're almost even schooling us.
Okay.
In
No, not really.
the discipline of law. Actually,
I was going to say that this is the first time two lawyers are speaking, in which the person listening is not a lawyer himself.
But they are doing a great job, actually.
Thank you.
You see. Part of what he said, it's absolutely correct, about one or two parts. One, if you freely join an association, you are bound by the dictates, the regulation, extra regulation or convention or whatever rules they will put there. But the question here, Doctor, we're asking is if you want to leave.
Okay.
That is what he did not understand here. If the Umahi is still within the PDP, he has to if they go to court and let's say he doesn't want to do ABC as agreed in their party constitution or their association, but the court will say do it.
Because you're still a member.
Thank you.
Okay.
But this time around, he wants to leave. He left. Now, another issue is this. You see, and that's the mistake we do. We have to really pass beyond this stage in this country. The moment the Umahi is true, the Section 220 courts, you can't actually contest because we don't have provision of independent candidates in our constitution or in our electoral acts.
Yes.
You have to belong to a political platform before you can get elected. True. But the moment you are elected, either as a president, governor, chairman, whatever, you, as a governor, you are not going to govern over the affairs of PDP members because I was elected under the platform of PDP. You are not the same vice versa with another political party. The entire state now is your jurisdiction, and you are responsible for them. And again, there is another school of thought that said, is it not possible, out of that 300, how many votes you have been calling?
398,000.
398. Do you want to tell me the entire that 398 votes were cast by PDP members? I can guarantee you, I don't have the data, but there has to be other people who even belong to an opposition party in those states.
We can safely assume that there were, because many voters don't belong to any party.
You know, I can actually, belong to another political party, but I can like candidate A. I have done that before. There are people in PDP I have seen and I have loved them. You know, so that is two. Now, if you want to live in this world, doctor, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that is permanent, like the philosopher said, except change. Marriage, a marriage under the English law is supposed to be or let me say even under the Christian faiths, it's not the divorce is never an option. But at the end of the day, there are circumstances that will lead to the dissolution of the marriage. He knows that he must have tried so many divorce cases, I'm sure. No, even this world that we live, our lives itself is not permanent. We will leave this world someday.
But the
so
issue
if
is
that
not
is
about
the case,
permanency. The issue about who owns the mandate.
Yes.
Is it the party or the candidate or the individual?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
let me hear him, then I will respond.
Yes.
It's okay. I firmly believe,
Yes.
given the current decisions of the Supreme Court, which have not been set aside by any other decision of the Supreme Court, that votes that are cast in an election belongs to a political party and not the candidate. Now, I think...
Well, in that case, maybe we take a break, because although we do not have a governorship example in our legal history, we do have a vice presidential example in our recent legal history. When the vice president, former vice president Atiku Abubakar, then a sitting vice president, decamped from his party, the PDP, to the ACN as it then was. The Supreme Court ruled that he retains his office as vice presidency. But that will be when we return from a short break, and then we continue with our discussion on the legal and political implications of the court ruling demanding that Governor Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State vacate his office, because the mandate belongs not to him, but to his party, the PDP. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing the legal and political implications of a High Court judge ruling that Governor of Ebonyi State must vacate his office because the mandate for defection from the PDP to the APC, because the mandate belonged not to himself, but to his party or his old party, the PDP. I have with me two lawyers, and we have been so far discussing these issues. So, Barrister Inkem, as I was saying,
yes,
in the case of the former vice president, he was then a sitting member of the PDP first, and on the same ticket as with the former President Obasanjo in the PDP. And then he left the PDP, and he joined with ACN, and then the President Obasanjo, as he then was, declared his seat vacant. And he wanted to conduct elections and so on, and then and the Supreme Court said, no, that cannot happen, that the votes belong to the candidate, not the party. So how does that imply or apply in the current case? It's
okay. I need to correct one impression.
Please go ahead.
Yes, the Supreme Court did not make any definite pronouncement as per who the vote belongs to in that case.
Okay.
Now, the facts now, that's what we call ratio decidendi, or in a case.
I wouldn't know, but he would.
Yes, he knows. Yes. Now, for a case to become binding, the decision of the Supreme Court to become binding on a lower court, the facts and circumstances of the case must be similar. Now, in the case of Atiku Abubakar, AG Federation and Atiku Abubakar decided in 2007. Yes, it was decided in 2007. The issues before the Supreme Court are different from the issues, the basis of which Justice I.E. Eko gave his judgment in this. The issues of the rights, the vested private rights of political parties as provided for in the Constitution were never decided upon. It was the purported removal by President Obasanjo of his vice by himself and writing to the National Assembly for a replacement that came into force. And as a result of that, the Supreme Court had to delve into several issues as it relates to the removal of a person from. So, and a case is an authority for what it decides. Whereas in this case, the thing that was the facts or the issues the court decided on bordered on the rights of the political party. A political party who nominates, sponsors, and provides funding for the campaigning.
But in that case, the Supreme Court did mention, because I read some of that the party is a vehicle. There was the use of that term. It's a vehicle to elective office.
There is what we call
so how does that apply
there is what we call
case?
There is what we call obiter in a judgment, and there's what we call the ratio in a judgment. Now, in the course of giving this decision, the courts do not just go straight to the point. The obiter is they dance around. There are little issues they have to consider. So you do not rely on obiter to say that this is a ratio in a case. So it is only the ratio, that is the main reasons that the court decided in, that becomes ratio and binding on lower courts.
In other words, Barrister Abdullahi, even though the court said that Atiku can retain his office, having come from PDP to ACN, the same cannot apply to Dave Umahi.
That's what he's saying.
Yes.
And that's what this trial judge said.
Okay.
I disagreed, obviously. I think you actually nail it. You see, a lot of things, when a court is considering a matter, I don't want us to get lost into the technicality because the audience, some of them are not legal people. So what they want is to hear a simple, you break down your conversation as simple as possible so that they can understand. Everything the Supreme Court or any court will do is they will take into totality of the facts before them, the evidences that were given. They will look at the law. And I don't believe that there are any things that they will say that is not important to the reason why they reach the decision. And you pointed it out. And that reason is as important as it was that day as it is today. Because the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, didn't approach the court and said, I don't want this man as my BP because I don't like his face, or he's no longer loyal. Those were not the reasons he canvassed. The reasons he canvassed was this. He defected, we were elected, he defected to ACN. His votes is not his. So I want to bring someone from the PDP, meaning he is relying strongly on the claim that the party Atiku Abubakar defected to is not supposed to enjoy the votes that they share between him and the vice. And the court, that was why he's asking the man to be relieved so that he can nominate someone. But the court refused. They didn't agree with him. How can that not be an important part of the reason why they reached the decision?
Contrary to what he said, you are saying that it doesn't have to be stated.
It is an important part of the decision. And see, I have, I think, one or few cases, but the problem is I cannot touch.
Don't worry, it's not a low court.
Yes, I cannot touch my phone. So, and again, this, you see, sometimes also law law, if you go back in history of time, the desire for society to have rules and regulations to guide their common existence did not just come out of nothing. It is out of logic. So sometimes logic has a place in law.
So in this case, what's the logic in this particular case?
And I said it before. I said, the moment you became a governor, you are not a governor of your political party. You are a governor for the entire people of the states. And I'm telling you, and I want to assume fairly so, that some people who are not affiliated with your political party had a hand in actually voting you through. So why should they, even if it is one person that voted you, why should he suffer because, why should they be removing? Again, sorry, doctor, I know.
No, go ahead, just 1 minute.
Another logic here to consider. In Nigeria, like in a lot of places, and because this has to do with also that lack of political ideology I mentioned at the beginning, that we don't have in this climate. Many people, doctor, they do not vote because of party. They vote who is on that vehicle. And you are right. A political party in Nigeria is nothing but a vehicle and a platform. So people vote for individuals that are on the ticket, the candidates. And now, is it just unfair if majority, assuming, voted because Deb Umahi was on the ticket of PDP? Now, for a judge to say, I am going to take away that your aspirations and rights that you exercise because this guy changed an association. He's still the same Deb Umahi. He's still giving good governance.
I have to ask him this question. Thank you. I have to ask him this question. What then is the logic of the position of Judge Eko?
Yes.
What's the logic that the party owns the mandate, not the candidate? What's the logic?
Let me start from this way. Now, if
considering
you look at,
especially that some of the, like he said, some of the people who voted may not even belong.
No, let me start from this point. The ballot box, the ballot paper that the people vote use to cast their vote, it doesn't have the name of a candidate. It only have the symbol of the political party.
Absolutely.
So when any individual goes to the polling station to vote, what he's looking at for is APC, PDP, ABGA, and all the rest of it.
Yes.
You don't see the name of any single politician or any single candidate in the ballot box. You understand? Now, section 83 of the Electoral Act, section 83(2)(3) of the Electoral Act, it is the authority to the effect that the ballot papers should have the symbol of the political parties. So when you look at section 221,
the process of election doesn't start and end with the ballot box. It starts long before the ballot box, in which candidates have their faces, their names.
Let me come then. Now, it starts from the political party still nominating the candidate. By virtue of section 221, the political party, you see, political party, the marriage between political party and the candidate is such that it is inexplicable and is inextricable. And if there is divorce by the candidate, there has to be consequence. You know, in law, they said that where there is a right, there should be a remedy. And if the political parties have private vested rights as a result of the provisions of the Constitution, let me tell you something. The rights that accrue to a governor by virtue of his election is a public right, not a personal right. Whereas the rights that accrue to political parties by virtue of the provisions of the Constitution are private rights. And the courts have held...
We have to move on beyond this because I still have a number of questions I wanted to consider, and we're getting close to the end. But Barrister Abdullahi, there's also this case of 22 senators and 57 members of House of Reps who decamped, I think around 2012 or 2013, thereabouts, or 2007 or thereabouts, decamped from one party to another. At that time, it was people decamping from other opposition parties to the PDP, rather than from PDP to the ruling party at the time, So what was the ruling at that time, and how is that case different from this, particularly the defection of a member of a House of Reps or Senate or House of Assembly, and that of a governor or president or vice president or deputy governor?
Thank you very much. Now, this is where it is a bit more clear, or let me say, in fact, to my own opinion, very clear.
Okay.
The law was very clear. If a member of a legislative house, whether national or at the state level, defects from the political party that he was elected, and there are processes, the party can actually petition the speaker or the Senate president and request that he declare that the person holding the office be whether the speaker or Senate president, as the case may be, for the seat to be declared vacant. It's in the law. Now, it now gives an exception.
Okay.
The exception is this: if the only way that the member would not vacate that seat, if he can show that there is a division within his political party where he was elected from, and that division is a division that actually affects the structure of the party from the national level. And this is one common mistake people do. They will have some division in ward, local government, state, and they will hide under that. And with due respect to my lordships and your lords, they will hold that as a valid reason for not sending the person from the seat. But the law is clear. That division must be a division that affects the national structure of the party, not in your local government, not even in your states. That is the law. So if you show that there is this division, then you don't have to vacate your seat. So politicians, they found an ingenious way to go around it.
The law is different between governors and the people.
There is difference.
Okay.
On the executive side, there is nothing like that. That is what I'm trying to say. And that is what we're saying, both me and him, that they're trying to make some amendment to have something, But the politicians, even that, how many of them that defected and they have lost their seats? Because the politicians are smart. They find ingenious ways to escape that, to create that exemption, to benefit from that exemption. They create the division. It's easy to create division.
This is another example, before we go to the consequences. There's this example again in Zamfara State, Motawali. The court said that there's nothing in the constitution that bars anyone, a governor, from defecting to a party. How is that different from this Umahi's case? Because that's the question most people ask.
Yes, I have to start from this point that the Federal High Court...
Bearing in mind we don't have much time.
Yeah, okay, Federal High Courts are all courts of coordinate jurisdiction. Okay. Hence, the decision of one Federal High Court is not binding on the other Federal High Court, any other Federal High Court. So, it is only persuasive. The judge may or may not decide to be bound by any other decision of his brother judge of a court of coordinate jurisdiction. So, the decision in Matawala's case, like I told you, every case is an authority for what it decides. Now, I have tried to read that authority. They did not canvass the issue of Section 221. They did not canvass the issue of Section 177C of the Constitution. They did not canvass the issue of the rights of a political party over
the votes,
the votes of his candidates. So the court did not, it's only what is presented before the court that the court can determine and decide. So when those issues were not presented before the court in Zamfara, the Federal High Court, there is no way the Federal High Court by itself would have gone into a voyage of discovery to begin to
award what was not
Whereas in this case, it was exhaustive. The lawyers who handled the matter, it was exhaustive. The judge who also wrote the judgment was exhaustive, and it should be encouraged because it is a judicial precedent. It is a judicial precedent which will put a stop to this, you say it's pandemic or epidemic, cross-carpeting in our ever nascent democracy.
So, Barrister Abdullahi, that's just about the final question we're asking now. Where do we move forward from here, particularly for the governor? Okay. Does he have to leave office, or what's going to happen? Is there a room for appeal, and particularly for those voters in Ebonyi State that actually cast the votes? What happens?
So I want to just say one thing quickly before I move to this seat. He said the judgment of the judge that gave the booted to Governor Dev Umahi is a judicial precedent. It's not a judicial precedent. Binding on who? Okay. Binding on who? It's a high court. And mind you, on 28th of February, another court, talking about court of coordinate jurisdiction, actually delivered a judgment that found the government not wanting by his act of defection. Okay. But nevertheless, this judge still went ahead, just how many weeks? Not more than 2 weeks, right? To find him, wanting. Okay. And the Chief Justice of the country has warned, my lords, not to be given, especially if you are courts of coordinate jurisdiction, not to be given conflicting judgments.
So where do we
and
go
what
from
they
here?
what they should have done is to go on appeal. When they lost on 28th of February. Okay.
No,
now
was
I'm coming.
not a party in that matter.
Now, So let me say something. You asked where do we go
exactly
from here? He has the right of appeal. Okay. The governor will appeal, and let me tell you something.
Does he have to leave office in the meantime?
No.
Okay.
No. Okay. He doesn't. He will file two things. He will file an appeal. He will file a stay of execution, and I am sure the judges, the lawyers must have already done that. So he's going nowhere. And I can tell you this. And if it did happen, feel free to call me. Okay. That judgment will be reversed in the Court of Appeal. No Court of Appeal will uphold that judgment.
I think we can leave it at that for today, and it will really, really be interesting to have the two of you on a show of this kind again some other time, and we will make sure that we bring the two of you on board. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Barrister Nkem Okoro. Thank you also, Barrister Abdullahi, for coming on Aliyu for coming on the show. We truly
thank you,
appreciate
Doctor.
Thank you also, our viewers, for staying with us, because you are there. That's why we also try to be here. Thank you for staying with us. We hope that tomorrow you join us again when we bring you another edition of Daily Politics on Trust TV. I am Suleiman. Good night.